Hi there, and welcome back to Scream with Me. My name is Rusty, and this is my horror movie and heavy metal channel where I talk about my favorite horror movies and my favorite music, heavy metal, grunge, punk, aggressive rock, and my favorite movie genre is horror, of course. And I'll try not to do a thesis like the last video, so let's get started, shall we? And we are going to go back to 2009, where we're going to talk about a wonderful little movie called Triangle. Yay! Dig that lenticular cover, yeah? It's neat, okay? It's neat. But yes, terror comes in waves. Yeah, it does. So, this movie was released in 2009. It was written and directed by Christopher Smith. It stars Melissa George, Joshua McIvor, Jack Taylor, and it's one of the earliest appearances of Liam Hemsworth. So if you are a Liam Hemsworth fan, you have to have this movie. Not only because it's a mind-bending good ride, um, but if you like Liam Hemsworth, you're gonna have to get this movie to have all of his movies. So, um, categorically, I would say that this movie is like half slasher, and half like time loop mind bend type deal. So I love it, and a lot of people. It's kind of a cult classic. A lot of people love it, and yeah, so you should really have it. So let's move on to story time, shall we? So, as Triangle opens, we are introduced to our main character. Her name is Jess. We see her at home getting prepared for what appears to be taking her kid to school. Um, and significantly, we hear a doorbell ring, and she goes outside and asks the neighbor, was somebody in her yard, because she just heard the doorbell ring. But nobody's there, so she gets the kid and they go. Now, the next time you see her, she is appearing at the on the docks at a harbor, and Liam Hemsworth's character Victor Caesar introduces himself and asked where her kid was, and she said he was in school. She goes out, and she's acting a little funny, and he notices it. So when the captain, who she knows, um, comes up to her, he asks Victor, "Is she all right?" And he's like, "No, she's not." And he goes and gets on the boat, and he asks her if there's anything wrong, and she's like, she just seems really out of it, really out of sorts, unlike back at the house where everything seemed normal. Um, so she gets on the yacht with a group of friends, as all horror movies have to have. We have Heather, Victor, Greg, Sally, and Downey, and they all take off on the boat. We have a little bit of interplay between the characters as we get to know them, um, the little quirks and behaviors of them. So that takes a little bit of time, not a whole lot. The pacing is really good in this movie. And next thing that we know, the first thing that happens is that all the wind stops, which is kind of trouble for a sailboat. But they can get back to shore because they do have a motor. But um, it's just weird the way the wind all disappeared. Then on the horizon, you see this large, gigantic, dark storm clouds coming, and very fast. So they all get into panic mode. The storm hits them. The boat is destroyed, flipped upside down, and everyone, lives through it. Um, it all clears and goes away. Everyone lives through it, and they're all on top of this overturned boat. And you're kind of wondering, well, what's this? A shark movie or something? You know, because it looks like a slasher on the cover, and maybe from what you've heard, like me telling you about it. So um, they don't really know what to do. They think they're in trouble, and then all of a sudden, this big giant cruise liner is coming. Gives you ghost ship vibes. They do see a figure standing up there on the deck, and it comes, close enough for them to all get on the gangplanks and, climb the ladders to get up onto the boat. And yet they can't find this person that they had saw. So they're sort of, looking around, trying to figure out where this person is. Why is there nobody? I mean, it's not a freighter or anything. It's a passenger liner, and yet there's nobody on it. But yet there's food laid out, and it's just very weird, The whole thing is very trippy. So Jess keeps thinking that she sees someone, and hears someone, but they can't never find this person. And then the proverbial shit begins to hit the fan, because they start being picked off one by a sackhead killer, like, Friday the 13th Part 2. So you have a sackhead slasher, and there are some great kills in this movie, you understand? Some great slasher kills. But what's funny about it is, like, beginning with the death of Victor, which is, I guess, kind of my favorite one in this, because it happens by accident, you find later on. But at the first time that you see him, notice I said that the first time that you see him killed, he just comes into the room where Jess is and attacks her, and starts trying to strangle her, and she's trying to get him off of her, and her finger goes in the hole in the back of his head, and then he falls over dead, and you're like, oh, that was gross. So somehow he got a big hole in the back of his head, but you don't know how. Other people are being shot. One person gets shot, and she runs over to where that is, and the woman that was with that guy begins to scream at her about being a psycho and that she shot him. And she's like, but I was over there with this guy who was dying. I didn't shoot nobody. So things really start taking a turn, and they start twisting and turning, and getting all freaky, because some of her friends are accusing her of being the one who did the damage to whoever they were with that was killed. But we see her, and we know it's not her. Then they finally, she finally does track down the sackhead, and they end up in a monster battle on top of the top deck. And I guess you could call her a final girl, and she gets the best of the killer and starts to knock them overboard. But right before she does, the killer is saying something to her, and she manages to make out right before the killer falls off the boat. And that is, the killer tells her, you have to kill them all. It's the only way to get back home. So you're left with that. Like wondering, what the hell does that mean? And she ends up, backing back into the quartermaster's chamber, and bumps into a record player, and this weird music starts playing, and she ends up going back out, to the deck, only to hear more noises, and find out that when she looks over, she sees the overturned yacht that they was on, and she's there, and her friends are there on this overturned yacht. So you don't really understand what is going on, you know, when that happens. Did you see my camera go in and out of focus? But so she is freaked out. You're freaked out because what the hell just happened? You just saw the friends get killed. You saw her fight off this murderer, and yet there's a yacht, the exact yacht, and there she sits with all of the same friends. They come on deck, and you get to see everything happen again, but from a different perspective. Her perspective of watching it go on, which you remember from the first loop, like when she thought she heard somebody drop their keys and then they went and found the keys. That was her seeing herself drop her keys. So you're like, okay, I see where this is going. Some kind of, okay, you're going to be that kind of movie. You're going to do that shit to me. Alright, okay. Let me get prepared and okay, let's do this thing. So you get to see all of the murders happen again. Like a couple that were off screen in the first loop, you get to see what happened to them in the second. And it does that as she gets more and more confused, realizing what's going on. She watches herself as in like third person now. She's watching herself and her friends. See, even trying to describe it is confusing. Find the sackhead. And she goes through the whole thing again from a third person perspective, watching it all take place again, and ending up finding out some new things, such as she finds the room where there are papers on the floor, and she picks them up and it says, you have to kill them all. And so she grabs a piece of paper and writes it, and it is indeed her handwriting, and there's like 100 of them all saying the same thing. And one of the kills, one of the girls that gets killed, I think it's Heather, she goes running out onto the deck, and Jess follows her, only to see the girl turn around a corner and go into this pile of bodies that were her, Heather. So, like it had happened 100 times before, and Heather ended up in the same place 100 times before. So there's Heather dying, and there's 100 dead Heathers around Heather. So you're getting the idea that this loop has been going on for a very long time. And when it starts again, you get to see her go through the loop from first person as the killer. So, if this is all confusing you, well, that's part of the game. And remember, I'm trying to tell the story. If you're actually watching it, it makes a little bit more sense because you're actually seeing it take place. So, try to remember that. But, so, after these loops, these great kills, it does all kind of start coming, to you in your head when you're like, well, okay, I understand that this loop is going on, and that for some reason, this woman, Jess, thinks that she has to kill everybody to make something occur, to stop something, to change something, but you're not really sure, and after I think it's probably the third loop. Like I said, you see it from a different perspective each time. She finally ends up from that very first vision you saw way back on the yacht. She does wake up on the beach. And she goes back home. And you're thinking, okay, did the loop finally end or what? So she goes back home and sees herself and her son in the house. So the loop has made it a little further this time, maybe? Because the Jess that woke up on the beach was the Jess in the sackhead that fell off into the water. Get it? So she goes back to the house where she sees herself slap her son. Her son's autistic. And she goes around to the back. She rings the doorbell. That was the doorbell you heard at the very beginning of the movie. You know, when there was nobody there. So she goes back to the shed. She gets a hammer. I think it's a hammer. And then she goes back into the house. Her home self goes out, asks the neighbor, did somebody ring the doorbell, goes back in, where she kills her home self, grabs her kid, gets into the car, and starts heading out. With the body, with her home body that she just killed. I'm calling it the home body so you can keep them separated. So she goes out in the home body with the home body in the truck, the kids in the back seat. She goes racing down the road. Where the hell she's going, who the hell knows. But she then gets like 2 seagulls hit the windshield. Now the kid gets freaked out at the sight of blood. So he's kind of, having a fit. She pulls over and she gets out to get the 2 dead birds out of the road. So when she gets the 2 dead birds out of the road, she walks up to the edge where the beach is and to throw them over, where she sees a whole pile of dead seagulls. So you're kind of like, okay, we're still in the loop. Are we just seeing the results of Sackhead falling off, which we now know was her, and we're just being shown the loop further this time? Because that stack of seagulls means that she's been throwing these dead seagulls off. So she gets back in the car and starts taking off, still confused, still knowing she must be in a loop or something. The kid's freaking out about that blood on the windshield, so she's trying to calm him down while at the same time driving, and turns on the wiper to get the blood off, tries to calm him down, and I'll be damned if she doesn't clip a trolley, an 18-wheeler semi-truck. So she clips it, the car wrecks, the kid is killed, her home body that she had in the trunk falls out into the road, and there she is standing on the side of the road watching her dead body that she had in the trunk and her dead son. Behind her pulls up a taxi. The guy gets out and is like, can I help you? And she's like, who are you? And he said, well, I'm taxi, can I give you a ride? And he tells her, there's nothing that you can do to bring your son back. And that's when she said, who are you? And he said, I'm just a taxi driver. I'm just a driver. And can I do anything for you? And she was like, yeah, you can give me a ride back. You can give me a ride to the docks. So he takes her back to the dock, where she begins to, she gets out in that same dazed state, and you realize that you are right back at the beginning of the movie. And she sees Liam Hemsworth. He asks her the same question. She gives the same answer. And now you understood what she meant when she walked up to the captain, Greg. I think his name was Greg. And, said, when he asked her what was wrong, and she just hugged him and said, "I'm sorry." And he's like, "Sorry about what?" And she says, "Nothing." And he's like, "We don't have to go out today if you don't want to." And she's like, "Yes, we do." And they set sail back out again, and the movie ends. So what the fuck does this all mean? Well, if you've ever heard of have you ever heard of Purgatory? That's an explanation. If you don't want to have a religious aspect to it, is it just, is she in a coma somewhere in the hospital? Because remember, the dead body that was laying on the road was dead. Who was the strange guy in the taxi that gave her a ride that just appeared there? Who was that? I can tell you one thing. He knew what was going on. Because the most relevant thing that was said in the whole damn movie was when he said, "There's nothing that you can do to bring your son back. There's nothing you can do." And the way he said it was so, I've said this to you 1,000 times, which, as we talked about, several scenes in the movie kind of lent you to the idea of how many loops has already taken place. So, when he said that, "Can I do anything for you?" "Yes, you can give me a ride to the dog." Okay. Who is he? What is this place? What's going on? Well, it's obvious what's going on. What's going on is, however this is occurring, and I think they're calling it triangle, because either that storm or that area, like the Bermuda Triangle, is allowing her to attempt over and over and over to change what cannot be changed. And I think that that's what she's trying to do, is she is trying to change something, figure out some way to change what happened by getting off that yacht, back to her house, and stopping the whole thing from occurring by not having that wreck and killing her son. So is she trying different points of access, different points of ending the loop, to see if that makes any difference? Does she have a major plan at work here to try to figure it out? I don't know. That's the whole point. And you're kind of left to wonder. My biggest question was who that guy was in the taxi, because whoever it is knows what's going on. And some people can be irritated by these kind of movies that don't give you all of the answers and leaves it up to your interpretation. But it's like Agnes of God. If you've ever seen that movie Agnes of God with Meg Tilly and Jane Fonda and Anne Bancroft, I would not want that movie any other way. And that is one of the best movies, dramatic movies ever made. And they do not let you know. Was it Stigmata? Did she meet someone in the barn? Where did that baby come from? Nuns don't get pregnant. They don't tell you. They leave it up to you to figure out what you believe happened. And I would not want that movie any other way. And Triangle is the same thing, to me. I really would like to know, but at the same time, every once in a while, man, I don't want it every time. And it has to be executed very well. I don't want to experience it a whole lot, but every once in a while, I do like a movie that is well put together and that leaves you wondering what the fuck, and kind of makes you sit back and think, what happened? What's happening? Is there some way for her to change it? I mean, you've got all the information that she's got. Can you see how it could be changed? If you were in a loop like that, what parts would you change? I don't know. That's the whole point, is it really makes you wonder. But it is an experience, and it's an experience you should see. The kills are phenomenal, well placed, and Liam Hemsworth is gorgeous. Cast is attractive. The story is good. Trying to figure it out. The kills, like I said, are top quality slasher kills, and yeah. So, 2009, Triangle. Melissa George, Liam Hemsworth. I was very glad to find this little collector's item with a lenticular cover intact. You can find it. You just have to be vigilant like I am. Us cinema nuts can find stuff. We know how to dig and look everywhere. eBay is great. eBay is a really good place to find this stuff. I usually can find everything there. But yeah, so that was Triangle, a little mind-bendy cult classic, and you can check it out. What does it say? It says right now you can watch it free on IMDb TV, whatever the fuck that is. Is there anything else? Pluto TV. It says Tubi and rent and buy at Amazon. So it looks like there's some options. I'll leave it to you. You can do the same thing I did. Just go to International Movie Database, look up Triangle 2009, look on the watch options, and you can check them out, see if you can watch it. I, of course, instead, I urge people, well, if you're not a collector, then it doesn't matter. You can watch it however you want to, but I, of course, have to own it, so for my collection. So I'm very glad. Same old ending spiel. Support indie horror. Support indie filmmakers, especially indie horror filmmakers. And I will see you in the next video. And don't you like the realness? You know what I mean? I don't hide anything. I'm just look, I'm just sitting and talking with you about a movie. These are my mice. I drop them. I don't edit or anything like that. What you see is what you get, baby. We're just going to have a conversation about movies. Let me know what you think about this movie, if you've ever had it or seen it. And if not, like I said, it does say watch free on International Movie Database TV. So I don't do any streaming services except Netflix. I do have Vudu, where I have bought 3 or 4 because I'm not spending 25 or 30 bucks on a movie. So I have had to buy a few from there, but I just usually redeem my digital codes there. So, yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Love you, miss you, bye. We'll be back with another cool horror movie. And keep screaming very, very loud when appropriate. Yes. See you in the next one. Bye bye.